So this is my presentation for Myerscough College on the talent development systems. So why are they important? So it provides the club with a clear structure to explain to players where they can progress to. Provides them with confidence that they can get to the right level and the level that they want to. Optimises player potential, so players will be motivated to push their best potential to progress to the highest level. Provides opportunities that not other clubs can provide for the players, and it makes the club more appealing. So players are more likely to join at the thought of being able to progress and be the best they can with the right support. So Myerscough College, so you've got different age range of players, which provides a different environment. Great facilities, so brand new sports hall, different S&C resources, experienced coaches in yourselves that provide knowledge and educate players, dedicated coaches and players, great leadership structure. So you've got your ambassador, then you've got your captain and your vice captain, and it provides a clear pathway to where new players can go. Great social aspect of the club, and provides opportunities outside of the club as well, so loads of external opportunities. So I wanted to critique and investigate certain areas of Myerscough to help develop the club for both coaches and players after being within the structure for 4 years and understanding the importance of talent development structures now. So first area I looked at was psychological areas. So to increase success, athletes must be prepared for competition, and I believe you understand and explain the importance of certain games really well without adding too much pressure, but I feel it would be good to see more psychological training done in regards to the impact of pressure on the athletes in big games and to ensure younger athletes are prepared to play in these big games as well. There's a range of ages within the club, so it builds players' confidence nicely. Veely and Chase state that confidence in sport is crucial yet fragile. As a club, you could promote more team building exercises and confidence builders at the beginning of the season to bring people out of their shells. And coaches, I think as coaches you do a really good job in building the confidence up of young new players. Coaches keep players concentrated during training really well, and I think it's important to educate the players on how concentration can impact a game, and that could be a way of improving their concentration. And finally, peer pressure. So there's a good environment around Myerscough, but due to there being younger players with older players, they can be susceptible to peer pressure. Klassen and Brown state that peer pressure is a primary mechanism of transmitting group norms and maintaining loyalties among group members. So a leadership structure helps to prevent this, as they know who to look up to and who to follow. But I think it does still happen, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It might just be messing around in training because they think that's the way they can fit in. But it does happen in every club, so a talent development system would help to improve the club. So within that, I think one way you could avoid that is peer-to-peer mentoring. So different ages make Myerscough Netball Club the ideal place for a peer-to-peer mentoring initiative. So older players can be paired with the new younger players to make them feel involved and provide them with someone to talk to. And I feel like Myerscough new players may feel that there's a lack of players their age to confide in and ask about any issues regarding the club. Sport England state that young people are conscious of how they are perceived by their peers and other people important in their lives, and this will be detrimental to their personal development. Therefore, peer-to-peer mentoring would allow the young athletes to be involved in the already formed social groups. Hoffman and Lovehead state that peer mentored athletes are more prone to associate with a core group of teammates and will be viewed in high regard by their team members than those without a mentor. So it'll make the new athletes feel more confident and comfortable within their environment. The next broad area I looked at was socials and sociological. So parents are one of the biggest influences on young athletes. Myerscough states that from a parent's perspective, it's difficult to recognise a thin line between supporting and pressuring a child. So incorrect support from parents can lead to too much pressure on the athlete. Increased cooperation between coaches and parents could ensure better advice from the parents to the athlete, and it ensures parents aren't putting too much pressure on the athlete as well. The next bit is education. So all athletes at Myerscough College are students, so they have both work and training to contend with, and I think they have to have the correct support from parents and coaches around that area. And finally, friends. So referring back to peer pressure, how do you keep a player that's that's interested in netball, how do you keep them interested, involved within the club, even though the friends aren't? And I think as coaches we have a responsibility to support athletes around their social situations as well. So within that, obviously looking more at student athletes, so the Oregon Law's legal glossary states that an individual who engages in, is eligible to engage in, or may be eligible in the future to engage in any intercollegiate sport is what we class as a student athlete. So Myerscough has good acknowledgement of how stressful being a student athlete can be, and I think understanding that pressure is really important. I'd love to see it spoken about more during training, so make sure the athlete understands what comes first, so obviously education comes first. And I think a lack of players as well means that standout players are needed each week for the team to be successful, and I think that might put too much pressure on them. It's because staffing states that early success in athletes can lead to high expectations and an inner pressure to train, leading to burnout. So athletes see netball as an escape, as it's a hobby, but we need to ensure that they are putting the work before netball. And obviously things like Stumble Tuesdays, as we well know, going out before a game, it's not ideal, but Troyer states that interacting with others can boost feelings of well-being and decrease feelings of depression and stress. So there are positives to it as well, and I think as a club it's important to balance that out and find the middle point. As well within that sociological category, parent support programmes. So Myerscough has a big involvement with parents, and I think it's really positive that the parents get involved because they'll motivate their child to attend. Halstead states that coaches often have a difficulty working with the parents of their athletes due to communication problems, conflict, and sometimes power struggles over who has control of the child's development. So a parental support programme would be really beneficial to set guidelines for parents to follow to ensure they're able to distinguish the difference between support and pressure. An example is the Child Protection in Sport unit, who designed an awareness week called Parents in Sport Week, where they educate parents on how to help their children reach their full potential, and they also get them to sign up to the Sports Parents Promise, where they have all the guidelines online for them to log into a portal and they can get advice if they're struggling with anything or if they need help with anything. So the final big broad theme I looked at was support systems within the organisation. So pressure, so the Child Protection in Sport unit again state too much early pressure on young athletes can lead to burnout and withdrawal from participating in sport. So young athletes require downtime to develop into adults. Social, they need that downtime to be able to develop and gain life skills that they might not necessarily do in education. So they need the correct support system to balance education with the rest of their life. Family, again, going back to the parent support programme, the family need to be able to support them in the correct way. Health and well-being, so we need to ensure that the child is healthy and they're not suffering with any mental health issues, and they have the right support for that. And coach-athlete relationships is a big one. So they're vital to young athletes, and the Child Protection of Sport unit say that certain actions can blur the line between professionalism and friendliness. And I think as coaches you both have a really good relationship with athletes. However, I feel measures could be taken to ensure the line's clearly drawn between friends and professionals. So going into a bit more depth with that, so I think as coaches you both have really good qualities to create positive relationships with athletes. So you've got enthusiasm and the 3 C's, which is commitment, closeness and complementarity. And Stillen and Kerr state that coach-athlete relationships are one of the most influential relationships experienced by a young athlete, and they may lack the psychological maturity necessary to think critically about these relationships. So I think the club promotes socials which are necessary to promote bonding, which between the athlete and the coach. And I think, however, I do feel like more clear lines as to what is and what isn't appropriate between the coach and the athlete will create a more professional relationship. And you can do this by obviously using emails as a way of communication, or strictly work mobiles that are just used for netball, for example. Drew states that coach-athlete friendship is not meant to be as valuable as other forms of friendship, especially where sporting purposes dominate. So a great way to ensure the relationship is kept professional is to encourage bonding between the team to ensure the athletes can confide in one another and rely less on the support of the coach internally. So if the bonding with their teammates, they'll go to them with any issues first, which means that they're not relying on you too much. But I think as coaches as a whole, you do a great job of providing support to the athletes in a really professional way. So just a quick overview. So I think Myerscough has a great structure already outlined within the club. And I think that if you were to implement these structures, I think there'd be limited change for them to be implemented, because I think you've got the foundations already there to implement these systems. And the coaches and existing players within the club have so much passion and commitment for the club that the systems would be successful as long as they were implemented correctly. And they'll make the environment more professional. So a structure within a club for an athlete is really appealing and exciting, because it's providing them with a pathway to get to where they want to go. So thank you both so much for taking the time out to listen to my presentation. I really hope this has helped you understand the importance of talent development systems, and I am really excited to see how the club develops in upcoming years, and I wish you all the best. Have you got any questions?
I've got a question, Lauren, in terms of communication with the athletes. So we actually use work mobiles, work emails, and internal college. It's an intranet, an internal college system, which are the only methods we use to contact players. So I'm just wondering what you meant in terms of the professional line, in terms of communication when we do use college systems.
Yes, I think it's important that it's more on the athlete's side. So obviously you're used to using these inter-college systems and things like that, but new athletes might be used to having a coach that uses their personal mobile. So it's important to make the athletes understand why you use a work mobile instead of your personal mobile, or why they communicate with you through email. And it's important to make them understand why safeguarding is important and why you do these things.
Okay. Can I just touch on that?
Yeah.
In terms of, obviously this assignment is about the college structure, but as you know, Lauren, we work very closely within a club system, so
Yeah.
It's not just a college team. And many of the college players play across many of the teams that we have under the Myerscough umbrella. So in terms of keeping it professional and not blurring the boundaries in terms of communication, what would you suggest then when we are speaking with college students regarding an external fixture?
Yeah, so
when I say that, I mean like we're looking at students that are below college age, that are college age, and participants that are older. So how do we get around using our work phones for external use?
Yeah, so I think it's more for, obviously, like you say, obviously I know you've got college players that are external as well, but I think as it's external, I think it's a bit of a hard one, because like you say, it's external and they're older. But I think if they're in the college system, they should all be using the methods that we've spoken about, so email, things like that. But I think once they leave the college structure, I think then that's down to you as a coach, whether you deem it acceptable, or whether you think to keep that relationship professional as you want, you could either use your personal one or your work one. But I think within the actual college team and the structure, the team at college, I think it's really important that personal communication through like personal phones is kept to a minimum. Obviously it is quite a hard thing, like you say, because obviously you've got players in the college team that are external as well. But I think, like I said to Joanne, it's just important that safeguarding is explained to the players and they do understand why we do these things, and then maybe that might change their mindset of contacting you. So I said about bonding with teammates with issues, so they can confide in them with issues rather than come to the coaches. Maybe promote that a bit more, so that then if it is to do with an external issue, they might be able to communicate with the team and sort it out, rather than have to get to that issue where do I use a personal phone or do I use a work phone? Does that make sense? So that you...
It does make sense. I'm going to
Go on.
Lauren. Just to explain the situation, obviously, for whoever views the video, my star college student is also plays on my external team. Now, obviously, I'm the captain of that team, and we have a team group chat. So, where do you stand in terms of her being part of that group chat or being excluded from that group chat?
Well, like you say, obviously, if you exclude her from that group chat, then I think that would cause more issues than not. I think as long as the line is kept where it's strictly netball conversation, so it's not sort of, there's a big thing about bringing your personal elements into with between the athlete and the coach. So I think as long as, if she's in that group chat, obviously you're not going to exclude her, you're a team, and that's rightly so. But I think as long as it's kept to a professional level and it's kept professional about netball, or if she comes to you with an issue, then maybe use those, or get Joanne there as well. So it's not just a one-on-one, if that makes sense. Just keep those lines professional and try to bring as little personal elements into it as possible.
Just to clarify with this, as of next season, we're actually going to be using an app for the team. So every Myerscough netball team, whether it's the college team or the other 8 club teams, will all be on the same app. So what we're going to have is the committee members of the club are going to have the organiser aspect of the app.
Yeah.
Access to every team. But then, depending on what team you're on, depends on which chats you're involved with.
Yeah.
And we can use our work phones on that chat, which you eradicate all issues, and that's starting as of September. So this discussion is brilliant, but as of September it actually doesn't need to be discussed because of that app.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. That's the sort of thing that these talent development systems you can implement with, because it gets rid of those personal lines, and it's a really great way of communicating professionally with your athletes and your coaches and keeping everything personal out the way, and there's no blurred lines that I was on about before. Then blurred lines aren't there.
Well, you can put your fixtures on it, you can put any courses and updates.
Yeah.
And it just saves you having to contact people separately. It's done in one go as a club or as a team. So that's as of September.
Yeah, no.
Another question, Lauren, regarding the psychology.
Yeah.
So when you say about the stress on participants, what we're trying to look to do is a periodised plan for individuals where if they've got exams academically, whereas that is linking in with the training and playing schedule so we don't overload them. Was there any other suggestions you had apart from a periodised plan that we could put in place to support their well-being?
Yeah, so I think at the start of every season, when you get new players in, I think it's important that maybe if you implemented that peer-to-peer mentoring program, within that you could, as a coach, get involved with that and talk about the worries and what they're worried about within the upcoming season and any issues that they think they might come across, and come up with a plan for them. So as long as they know, so this periodised plan that you're talking about, if they know they've got exams this month and you're saying to them, right, well, that month we're going to have one less training session, but feel free to go to the gym or anything like that, that's then providing them with some support, and they feel like they are supported by you. So then if they do get a bit stressed, they think, oh, well, they did this for this, so if I go to them and explain this, then they might come up with something for me to overcome this stress. So it's important that it's just being there for them. So that plan is a really good idea, because it'll make them feel supported and make them feel like you will go to extreme lengths to make them feel less stressed. And I just think communication between coaches and athletes, and make them trust you. And I think you both as coaches are very approachable. So I don't think athletes would have an issue with coming to you, but you just want to promote that approachability, if you will, so that if they do have an issue or they are going through a stressful time, they feel like they can come and speak to you and say, look, I'm having a very stressful time, could I do this instead? Or you could give them an alternative instead of the training that they're doing, just to relieve that stress and pressure a bit.
Thank you for your presentation, Lauren. It's been really informative.
Thank you.
Can you send over this recording just so we can play it back between us? And me and Joanne will look to implement some of the aspects of your presentation conversation into what we carry forward.